Welcome to the third episode of How Men Grieve. I'm Kay Rogers, the host, and I'm joined by my co-host Andrew Rogers and Aaron Adams. Hey guys.
Hey.
Hi, I'm Aaron.
It's an audio thing. We probably should say a little bit
Yeah, you
more.
really just skipped over both of our names. When he says your name, say hi. They have to be able to distinguish the voices. You have to set the tone.
You have the smoothest voice of all of us,
You
Andrew.
really do.
Say smooth.
I don't take directions.
You were like that as a child, too. Just saying. Anyway, hey, we're here. Thank you for following us. Thank you for listening. I hope we continue to entertain you guys. We're going to pick up where we left off the last episode. At the last episode, we were talking a lot about what happened at the hospital. The boys pretty much interrogated me on my feelings and how things went. And then we kind of segued into, what happened afterwards. And I pretty much talked about how I was kind of a piece of crap and an alcoholic and work through that. But I think in this episode, it's going to be a little bit of my turn. Whether you guys are prepared for it or not, but I'm going to interrogate you guys a little bit, and we're going to talk about your feelings, right? Because, you guys now, we're 9.5 years later, right? And Aaron, you have a beautiful little girl, and you've got a wonderful little 2-year-old boy who I babysat the other day who is insane.
Yeah.
And I have forgotten how hard it is to babysit a 2-year-old. Holy crap, I was so exhausted at the end of that. And then Andrew, you have 3 beautiful little children, and you got a son, and then you've got 2 little girls. One, your son is 9.
Yes.
And you would think the grandpa would know that, but that's what grandmas are for. And your Annabelle, who's your oldest daughter, is 7.
She's about to be.
About to be. So, yeah, in November, right? Her November 26th?
Close.
Andrew,
27.
Why did you roll your eyes when I said that and you had to think about it? You should have known that immediately.
Fail, Kay.
Phil, Andrew, and Kay. But anyway, and then we got Rosalie, who is 3. So, I think in this episode, we're going to kind of pick it back up, and we're going to talk about our feelings again. This is How Men Grieve, and the whole purpose of this podcast and the last, couple episodes, we're gonna dive pretty deep into our emotions and how we felt about things, and we want to talk about it, right? We want to really talk about it. And I know it's difficult, right, guys? I mean, I know for you, Aaron, and for you, Andrew, you haven't been asked a lot of questions about when your brother passed away and your reactions afterwards. And I know that's not easy. And Andrew, it's pretty clear you're not easy with it right now because you're fidgeting a lot. If you guys, at some point, if we get more than like 10 followers, I may buy a video camera and put those on YouTube. But
We have faces for radio.
Dang. That means we're like radio. Okay, awkward silence. Anyway, so that joke apparently failed. Anyway.
The silence was great, though.
You guys are like, God, Dad is really that dumb. Yes, I am. Anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about that. I think I've been pretty open and transparent, and I think that we can need to continue with that. That's the whole point of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how many followers we have. We're talking about it, so that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to start hammering on you guys a little bit. And so I'm going to start with both of you, Aaron and Andrew. We talked a little bit about it at the last podcast. We talked about the last podcast. We talked about a little bit the last podcast on your guys' feelings, and not even your feelings, but your thoughts and kind of how things were going. Yeah, your feelings when you guys left the house, right? You guys had seen us take off in the van and the ambulance and all that stuff. And so, how long were you guys at the house before you were picked up? Because neither one of you could drive at that time, if I remember right.
Yeah, it was right before I got my driver's license.
Yeah, and Andrew, you were, what, 14?
No, I had just turned 15.
15, okay. And then so you were 16, Aaron.
Yes.
Closer to 17.
I think. Yeah, yeah.
You guys
that's
are,
right. That's
you
right.
and Andrew are 2 years apart, right?
We're like a year and a half.
You would have been 16.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
We're
I had
like a
just
year and a
turned
half
15.
because, there's always like half the year he's 2 years below me, and then he has his birthday and he's like right there.
Yeah. So I want to start this off. So when we left, right? When me and your mom Aaron and your mom Andrew left, and we got in the van, we took off, and we were following the ambulance, and you guys were there at that time by yourselves. Right? There's nobody else there. You had Chloe there, but she was in bed, just asleep. Where was your guys' where were you guys at that time?
I don't even know if we really even talked while we were sitting there.
No,
Excuse
I
me.
don't remember talking or having a conversation about it.
And if we did, it was more so like, this is going to be fine.
Right.
He'll be all right. I think we were trying to just keep each other positive. I don't think either of us thought that was going to be the last we were going to see him.
No, I absolutely did not. The only thing that I really remember from that night was sitting outside on the front step and just... I don't know, I was still pretty freaked out. I guess I was just trying to process everything.
Did you go out and like have a smoke or something like you normally would go sneak out and do? Just kind of calm yourself down?
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, I wasn't going to mention that, but yeah, I was outside smoking and just trying to process all of that because it happened so fast and it was so unexpected. Like, I just didn't know how to take it. I didn't know what was going to happen. I remember being uncertain for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, it was like, man, it was 30 minutes.
Well, yeah, we were all hanging out. We were having a good time. We were having a great night that night. And then it completely flipped. It did a 180. And it was just so unexpected.
Have you ever reflected on that 30 minutes and thought to yourself how fast, or how, not even how fast, because we know what 30 minutes feels like, right? Think about it. If we sat here in silence on this podcast for 15 seconds, it seems like a lifetime, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you think back to that moment in time, how, and 9.5 years later, right? How much that 30 minutes changed your guys' life. Have you ever reflected on that?
Excuse me.
I feel like I have for sure. I've definitely thought about that 30 minutes in general often. Probably more days than not. But I don't know if I've really... I know that I have considered the effects, the long-term effects of that 30 minutes, but I don't know how often that actually has been.
What about you, Aaron?
I don't know if I really think about that too often at all, usually. I think usually when I think about everything, it goes back to the big event or being in the hospital. I think it didn't seem like 30 minutes when we were sitting there. And that's a pretty general guess, is 30 minutes, but it definitely felt like longer because all we were doing was sitting and waiting to hear something. It was very much just letting the anticipation take hold and like, what are we going to find out? Or like, is our brother going to be okay? Hopefully he is. As to what it's done for me throughout my life, I don't really know if I can answer that question. I don't know if I have an answer for that. I think the big event in itself has affected me more than that 30 minutes did.
What about you, Andrew? Do you feel the same way?
I think I do.
I know these are hard questions, guys.
Yeah, forgive the long silences. It's kind of you're really kind of digging deep and thinking hard here.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Okay, so let me preface this for you guys. Okay, so I've done a lot of talking about Nicholas over the years, with the advocacy work that I've done for the Gift of Hope, and not for the Gift of Hope, but really advocating for organ donation and get the Gift of Hope here in Illinois. And one thing I've had to do was really take a hard, deep look inside of who I am, and I'm going to promise you, I've been in touch with some of my feelings, right? I'm not great with all of them. And I will tell you, this podcast has challenged me. And we're only in our third episode, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Because I expect that as we progress forward, we're not always just going to talk about what happened to us, right? What we want to do is we've got some opportunities to talk to different people and men about divorce, and my brother recently lost his wife. And we're gonna evaluate that, and we're gonna talk with, Andrew, your brother, who experienced that loss, and from his perspective and where he came into this. So it's gonna be painful, guys. I mean, this is hard. This is not meant to be easy, but I think it's a really good opportunity for us to challenge who we are, and whether us men like it or not, to talk about, we actually do feel things. Good, bad, or indifferent. This is who we are, right?
Right.
And so when I ask you guys these questions, I don't want you guys to feel obligated to come up with a specific answer. I want you guys to answer open and honestly. And then let's talk about if there's parts of it that we don't really know. There's a reason we don't know.
Yeah.
We got to wonder why, right?
Well, I think speaking for me personally, I spent so many years doing whatever I could to put those emotions back and kind of bottle them up. I never dealt with it. I did everything that I could, basically, to avoid dealing with it.
When you say that, Andrew, if you want to share, what things did you do specifically to not deal with it?
Well, I just self-medicated. Would be the most simple way to put it.
So when you talk about self-medication, so when we talked in this last podcast, we talked about how I drank a lot, gallons, into, blackout phases and stuff. What things did you do? And if you don't want to share, that's fine. But for what?
No, I don't have an issue sharing it. It varied. Like, it started with marijuana for sure. And I would just...
Oh my God, the devil let us.
Right? But I was stoned constantly for a long time. There was probably at least a year, maybe 2,
Wow.
where I was just stoned constantly. I did not want to think. I didn't want to process. So I went through the motions, but I wasn't feeling anything. Or as little as possible anyways.
So stoned constantly, and yes, everybody who's listening, I am Andrew's dad, and I'm asking these questions, and I'm okay with his answers, because I love my sons, Andrew and Aaron. We've had things happen. We're going to be honest about this. So when you say stoned constantly, Andrew, what were you doing? And my question is, I think stoned, you were smoking pot all the time, right? So, but when you say constantly, give us a
What's the day in the life of after losing Nick, Andrew?
Yeah.
Well,
okay, thank you, Aaron.
I was still going to
exactly
school. I was still in school. I don't know how fast after losing Nick that I was working, but I remember during this period, at least, I was working full time still. Or almost. But I wake up, smoke as much as possible, get through school. As soon as I'm out of school, on the way home, smoke more, put on my work uniform, smoke more on the way to work, go in and, work for maybe an hour, hour and a half, and then go out and smoke more. About every hour and a half, I'd go out and smoke more. And that was pretty much every hour or so until I went to bed. Every time I smoked a cigarette, I'd smoke pot with it.
Do you have one of them cool hitter boxes?
No, I never had a cool hitter box.
I know.
The spring-loaded one.
This is your dad asking you that. Do you have a cool hitter box?
No, I wish I did though.
So you're medicating. Your drug of choice was marijuana. My drug of choice was alcohol. Everybody's going to argue they're not the same. Hey, here's a clue. Guess what? It's self-medicating. They are the same.
They're both mind-altering substances,
Absolutely.
no matter which way you want to look at it.
And I don't smoke pot. I haven't since I was 17 years old. I'm going to be 48 here shortly. But I would argue the point that I would think that marijuana is probably less destructive than alcohol, but it's not legal. Alcohol is. I'm not going down that rabbit hole.
Right.
But, so Aaron, for you, Andrew, his big thing was marijuana. He smoked all the time. How did you cope? What was your thing?
At first, I don't really know. I didn't have any type of substance. I wasn't drinking all the time, or I wasn't smoking pot. At least not any more or less frequently than I was before that. I kind of started in my personal relationships with my girlfriend at the time. I think I started to not really care how much I was causing her any pain or anything. And I think I took it more out on other people, maybe not exactly realizing that that's what I was doing.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's kind of uncomfortable, but whatever. I had broken up with my girlfriend at the time.
Okay.
And then shortly after that, I started seeing one of her friends and did that whole thing.
Right.
And then ended up talking her up like we were going to be something or whatever, and kind of just knowing full well I wasn't going to do that. And then kind of just, when something else came along, I just dropped that. And I think part of the reason why I did that was because I was hurting, so it didn't matter if somebody else was hurting too. Even if it was by my hands. That was how I felt, at least. I think it was more of a lashing out than anything.
So when you did that, do you think, not even do you think, it's a funny question when I say that, and I almost think it to myself, do I think? Well, no. Back then we didn't think.
Oh, there was no thinking.
I don't think I made a conscious decision to drink too much alcohol. Andrew, did you make that conscious decision to say, you know what? I'm going to smoke a bunch of pot for the next however many months I'm going to smoke it.
Right. No, I never thought about it, and I feel like that's part of the reason that it progressed. Because I didn't just stop at marijuana. As you guys well know, I have had years of addiction issues with more than just marijuana.
You know what? That's a good point, Andrew, and we could talk about that later when you're comfortable with it, if you feel like it, and it's off the table. That's okay. But in your perspective, Aaron, from where you came from, so Andrew talked about, the marijuana and then his other addiction issues, and I talked about, and some people could say, I was probably addicted to alcohol. Oh my God, I drank so much alcohol. It was stupid. Stupid. I couldn't drink enough Jaeger bombs. And here's the thing about, oh dude, here's my thought back then. And the thing about Jaeger bombs, every time I drank one, I got more drunk and I got more energy to get more drunk.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's great. I'm not saying, and I will never say it's the best path to take as a father, but that's what I did. But so Aaron, with you, you kind of talked about, you didn't medicate with alcohol or drugs.
At least at first.
But you medicated physically with other people, and you use them to try to fill that gap. Right. So, but where did that progress from you? Where did that progress from there?
I think what really gave me I don't even know how, I don't want to say that. I think what really changed for me was when you and Mom separated for that little while and we moved out, and I just kind of started doing whatever I wanted whenever I wanted.
What'd you do?
I stopped caring about school. I barely went to work. I smoked pot all the time. I just made dumb decisions.
Let's go deeper.
Like what? You have something specific? What do you want to know?
Let's talk about when you talked about when me and your mom separated, right? You guys moved in the apartments. So where was the turning point for you from the physical from the physical part of using somebody else to when you wanted to medicate? Where did that happen?
See, I don't know if me starting to smoke pot and all that had anything to do with losing Nick. I don't think it was a grieving thing. I think it was just I had the freedom to do it, so I did it. I don't really know. I don't think I had the thought of Nick wasn't in that process of doing all that stupid stuff I was doing then. Staying out way past when I was supposed to be and all that, just running around. I think I was just being a 18-year-old that had freedom to do whatever I wanted.
What about you, Andrew? When you were going through your... So we touched on it. You went through the part where you were going to medicate, right? And so you're smoking pot because you were burying... and so I'm embellishing here, so if I'm wrong, correct me and let me know. But so you were burying those feelings of pain, and you were trying to mask them with pot, right? You were smoking.
Yep.
And so I want everybody to hear this on the podcast. Yes, I know pot is not the evil drug, right? So everybody understands that. I don't smoke it, but I do not view pot as this evil drug. I'm just talking about that time, 9.5 years ago, my teenage boys and how they were reacting to the loss that we all felt. That's my disclaimer. I don't want to get into that rabbit hole of is pot good, bad, or indifferent? It's the gateway drug and all that. I'm not even going to go there. Just for the record, it's not. Anyway, so when you were smoking the weed, right? And, another disclaimer. I haven't smoked pot for like 30 years, and I still don't think it's a gateway drug. Anyway, so for you, Andrew, when you were smoking that pot, smoking the devil lettuce, the evil weed.
The devil's lettuce is my favorite euphemism for it.
Absolutely.
You know where I got that from? Your sister, Brittany.
That's not surprising.
She was like, oh my God, the devil lettuce. I'm like, that is going in the file of things that I will say going forward. But you said, Andrew, you medicated with that. And then when you decided, when did your medication transition from pot to the next step? Where was that at?
Well, Well, in the beginning, I had an injury, I think, so I started taking painkillers.
What were they? Do you remember?
What, painkillers I took, or what injury I had?
No. Well, we talk about both, right?
So I hurt my back skateboarding, I'm pretty sure. And I had a job at the time, so the smoking pot wasn't helping with the pain at all. So I don't remember how it was presented, but I was able to take painkillers, which I had never really been interested in before. I don't remember. I think it was. I don't remember if I first took Tramadol or Vicodin.
I think it was Vicodin.
I want to say that it was. But I started taking Vicodin, and I realized that made me feel 100 times better than pot ever did. And that just kind of created a downward spiral where it became more and more important. And I felt less and less. I felt like whenever I was taking it, I was able to focus on, positive emotions and stay positive and be in a good mood. And it was a lot easier to ignore all of the negative feelings that I had and everything that I was upset about or depressed about or...
So, I'm going to ask you a little deeper, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so, when you started it's like, oh my God, I took painkillers. I was doing painkillers, right? You never start out taking painkillers as you're doing them, right? You take them to control pain.
Yeah, my intention with taking it was never it wasn't an abuse kind of thing. I was legitimately in pain. I didn't go to a doctor because I was young.
Yeah, you hurt your back when you were skateboarding. I remember you hurt your back from skateboarding.
Yeah, it was a situation where I had things that I needed to get up and go do, and I was having a hard time getting out of bed. I was in legitimate pain. And at that point, I didn't really care what it was going to take to relieve that pain. But it was after taking it that first time that I realized this is something I really enjoy. And that's, I think, where the problem started.
So when you say enjoy, so it went, like when you took it the first time, it went from, okay, I'm not in pain anymore. I like what I'm feeling.
Right.
So what is the difference? So when you got hurt, you hurt your back, you were skateboarding, doing whatever you hurt your back. And I remember when that happened. And then we took you to the doctor and did all that stuff and they prescribed you that. I guess, why was there a difference?
Difference between what?
So you said, you liked the way it made you feel, right? You enjoyed it. It gave you, I don't know, maybe I don't understand.
So I think what you're trying to ask is what the difference between taking the pill was and smoking pot. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I think that's where I'm going.
So with smoking pot, I could only smoke so much before it became hard to function. I've never liked not being able to function. I still want to be able to go do what I want to do. So if I smoked too much pot, it became hard to walk or be on my feet or whatever. If I smoked too much, so I had to limit myself. Whenever I started taking painkillers, I could take as many as I wanted. I could still walk straight, I could still go to work, I could still go to school. I could do whatever I needed to do.
How old were you when you couldn't stop taking the painkillers?
That's a good question. Probably pretty close to 17 if I wasn't already. It progressed pretty quickly.
So my question is, it started off for your physical pain. Did it, when you took it and realized that it helped your physical pain, did you also notice a mood difference?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was a different I felt like a different person. I probably wasn't. I was probably a worse person. But I felt like a better person. I felt happier. I felt more social. I wasn't anxious. I was, I didn't have a grasp on reality the same way that I would have. I was completely in a different world. And I loved that.
Probably why it felt so good, yeah.
But that didn't last for very long at all.
Yeah.
That was just the beginning. That's what got me started.
And then from there it was just
an addiction, got worse. It got worse and worse. It progressed to an addiction that, I could tell it wasn't good for me by the end of it, obviously. it got a lot more difficult as it went on.
When you got that point when you knew you went from that transition of I'm masking the pain of my losing my brother to I'm now medicating because I'm addicted to that medication. Where was your emotion on that loss at that time?
I think the whole point was there wasn't much of an emotion. I was still upset about it. I mean, I missed him and everything like that, but I didn't think about it in a negative way as often as I had before. If I thought about Nick, I would think of happy memories and good things in general rather than focusing on, I know he's not here. I know, just replaying what happened in my head, stuff like that.
What about you, Aaron?
What about me? What?
So we went down the rabbit hole with Andrew, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what about you? So you were talking about, you started doing whatever you're doing, smoking some weed, doing your thing. You're 18, you had some freedom, all that kind of stuff. Me and your mom had separated. You guys moved to the apartment. But where were you at emotionally?
I think I was just kind of angry.
So talk about that.
I was kind of angry at you guys for not being able to figure it out. I was mad that we had to move out and that we were in this little house now and everybody was separated, and I think I was just lashing out at you guys mostly just for separating. And I understood why it happened. Like, I understood that, after Nick died, everything changed and everything became harder and all that. But I think I was just mad and wanted to see what I could get away with. Maybe try to show you guys that I was mad. And I don't know if he ever did or not. Or if you guys noticed that I don't even know how well I kept it hidden. I don't know if it was I didn't ever feel like I was hiding it that well. But I don't know if it was something you guys had picked up on or not. But I think that from 16 to probably 19, I think I was pretty different than I was any other time.
I think you were mad at me.
I was, for sure.
I absolutely knew, and for various different reasons, but when we interacted, after we had me and Rum separated and you guys moved in that apartment and everything, I knew you were mad at me.
Yeah.
You were mad at me. You wanted me to fix the problem.
Definitely.
And I knew I couldn't, but I didn't blame you for being angry at me. I didn't think you were wrong.
Yeah.
And Andrew, if you would have been mad at me as well, I didn't think you were wrong. Even Brittany, I knew when me and Pam separated, every one of you kids were mad at me. Brittany was mad at me. You were mad at me, Aaron. Andrew, you were mad at me.
I wasn't mad at you, though. I never got angry with you. Honestly, I felt bad. I knew how hard of a time that you were having, because there was a lot of times where I would, whenever you were drinking, I would come over, or I'd be there late at night, and there's many, many conversations that you had where we would be sitting on the back step or whatever, and you would just be crying and trying to process. I was never angry. I wish that I could help more.
You should have never had to carry that.
Yeah, but I also never got to see that.
Oh, the thing is, though, Aaron and Andrew, and if Brittany and Chloe were sitting here, I would tell you guys all the same thing. Every one of you has a different perspective of how I handle things and who I am and all those different things. And none of you are wrong.
Yeah.
You're not.
Right, and I'm sure if I would have been in his shoes and I would have saw different things than what I did see, then I would have felt a completely different way. I completely agree with you on that. That's just, from my viewpoint, I could see some of the other things that maybe Aaron didn't, or Brittany didn't, or Chloe didn't. And maybe they saw things that I didn't.
And I think a big thing in the differences of what we were seeing then is that Mom, Chloe, and I moved out.
Right.
Like, I left the home that I had been growing up in for 8 years.
Yeah.
And Chloe still got to come back, and I'm sure I could have come back whenever I wanted to. I don't think you would have stopped me.
No, not even for a second.
Not. No. But it was like, I lost my house. Like, I lost my home. And it felt like I lost my whole big family at the same time. Like, obviously, we didn't. Like, we could still all see each other, but we weren't all together anymore. And I think you being at least in the home still,
Right.
is a big difference.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure, and I'm sure you saw the way that your mom struggled.
That's
where
the other
I
thing.
saw things that he struggled
Right.
with. It was who we were around. That's who we had more of an understanding for, because there were situations that I didn't see that I'm sure you had to see, and there were situations that I saw that you didn't see.
Totally. But I don't even think, apart from seeing you physically, I don't think I spoke to you that entire time.
No, you didn't. You were mad.
Yeah.
And I knew you were mad. I knew your sister was mad. I knew Chloe was angry.
Yeah.
And then Andrew and you came to me and, you wanted to start living with your mom because, your girlfriend's pregnant and you wanted to have that stability.
Right.
And I was totally good with that. Right? I got it. And when all that happened, I felt abandoned.
I can see that.
You guys went on to what you needed to move on to. And so please bear with me when I say this. I'm not saying I was right in feeling this. I'm not saying you were wrong in doing what you did. I'm just talking about how men feel, how men grieve, right? And my emotions at that moment were, and I was not angry. I wasn't judgmental. I was not... I wasn't passing, I guess, judgment. I wasn't passing judgment on anybody. I wasn't really trying to define what you guys were doing. I got it. You were going to go with your mom, Aaron.
Oh, yeah, there's no questioning
and you were going to go with your girlfriend, Andrew. I got it. I know that.
I'm just a mama's boy. I can't help it.
You were all mama's boys, whether you like it or not. But you guys had moved on to what your next step was. And when you guys moved on, then when the smoke cleared and the dust settled and, there was stability in my perception at that time. I'm not saying there was. I'm just saying in my perception at that time. I was alone. There's nothing left for me. You guys had all moved on. Your mom and you, Aaron, and Chloe, and you, Andrew, and your girlfriend, and your mom and Marty were still... Oh, crap. I used the name I got to edit that out. Sorry, Marty. Or not. Give me permission and I'll put it in the metadata.
We've said Marty's name like 6 times in the last 4 episodes.
He's gonna be on the
Crap.
podcast.
He's also going to be on it. It's okay. I don't
All
think
right.
he's going to mind.
We'll do the disclaimer later.
Sure.
Anyway, they were still, your mom and Marty were still solid. And I think, I was like, crap. Whatever I had done my entire life, my method, my future, whatever it was, I was wrong. Because at that point, I was alone.
And I was angry with you at the time, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about you sitting in that house by yourself often. I know that must have been hard.
I did too. I remember trying to go out of my way to try to make plans with you or try to, stop by as much as I could. I mean, I was about to have a kid and still going to school and still working. But I do remember trying to make a conscious effort of trying to go and spend time with you and make sure that you were okay.
I think you guys did exactly what you needed to do. The rest of it really became something that I had to figure out for myself, right?
Yeah.
And the ownership of it didn't fall on either one of you because you guys were doing what you had to do, man. I mean, Andrew, you're having a kid, and Aaron,
Well, by the end of it, I was having a kid.
you were
too.
having a kid not that far afterwards. I mean,
The day Annabelle was born, I told you Ashley was pregnant.
I remember that.
Oh my
standing
God.
there looking at Annabelle, and I was like, "Hey, man, Ashley's pregnant too." And he goes, "Oh shit."
and that's exactly what Andrew's going to say. Right. And I remember Andrew called me, oh God, he calls me to Disney World. You were in Florida with your mom.
I was.
And he's like, hey, Dad. And he's like, hey, I got to tell you something. I'm like,
At Disney World.
what? And in the back of my head, I knew his girlfriend was pregnant because Andrew never called me. Ever.
Especially at Disney World.
Not from Florida. He's with his mom on vacation. Why would you call me? Come on, man. He's like, why didn't you hear this on Facebook? Because, everything's on Facebook. He's like, but Delaney's pregnant. I'm like, I'm not going to repeat my comment. All I'm going to say is, kind of saw that coming. When I screwed up, when I was grieving, guys, I drank too much. You had kids.
We did.
Your grieving was, hey, we're going to have children.
Not intentionally.
Really?
The process by which it happened was intentional, but the conception was not.
All right. All I'm going to say is,
Andrew does not know what to say right now.
all I can say is,
I don't know how I feel about
it's
having-
2019. Back then, it was 2012, and birth control was still pretty predominant back then. Just saying.
Yeah.
But
Alcohol doesn't help that situation.
circling back,
I wasn't sober, so that's my excuse.
I wasn't either when you were created.
Whoops.
Circling back, we segued. I don't want this podcast isn't about me. This podcast is about you boys and your direction afterwards. So we talked about your addiction, Andrew, and how your addiction progressed. And I'm not saying your your addiction progressed from marijuana to painkillers. I don't believe marijuana was a gateway drug. I think that situation became the painkillers gave you some relief that you didn't feel.
Yep.
And I think it became a situation where, the withdrawal from painkillers is it's pain. So when you try to stop taking them, you hurt more, so you take more.
Yeah. Well, I had myself convinced for a long time that I was still genuinely in pain. I had myself convinced for a long time.
And then, oh, it was a long time, dude. Do you, Aaron, I don't know, you weren't there. And this is going back probably 5 years ago. And I called Brittany, and I called you, and I called Andrew's mom and Marty, and I did the intervention thing, and I called you on the phone, Andrew, and I said, listen, dude, you got two choices. You get here to my house at, I don't know, 5 o'clock, whatever it was.
It was something like that.
Yeah. Or I'm going to come get you, and I'm going to drag you into my car, and I'm going to make you show up. And your text was, okay. And you showed up, and I did.
Surprise.
And I honestly, I at that time, I really thought you were going to flip me the bird and say, F you, Dad, and you weren't going to show up. I was really surprised you showed up.
Well, I was at the point where I knew that I needed help. You know, I was miserable. I had completely messed up my relationship. I wasn't being a responsible parent. I just knew that I could do better. And I knew that the road that I was going down was not going to end well.
Were you afraid, or not afraid, were you nervous when you came that day?
Oh, absolutely. I was terrified.
How could you not be?
What do you mean, Aaron?
What? When your dad just texts you and goes, "You're coming over now if I have to come drag you here," yeah, I'd be nervous too.
Well, that, and I knew that I was messing up.
Yeah, that too.
Just for the record, that wasn't a text, that was a phone call.
Oh, sorry.
So that probably makes it worse.
Yeah.
Oh, you were mad.
Oh.
Well, you weren't mad, but you could tell that you meant business.
I'm helping you whether you like it or not.
Yeah, it wasn't really optional, which I appreciate. I mean, that's what I needed at that time. I wasn't going to do it by myself, obviously. What I was doing by myself was not productive by any means.
At your lowest point, and when your addiction went from, I'm trying to mask pain to just, I have to have more of this. What was your lowest point? What was the most you were taking at that time?
I was taking 150 milligrams of Vicodin a day. Each tablet is 10 milligrams. Dang. That's the strongest tablet, is 10 milligrams.
Is that a lot?
Sounds like a lot to me. That's like 15 pills a day.
And that was a good day. I mean, I was taking as much as I could possibly get my hands on. As much as I could afford, to the point where all of our money was going to that. That's all I cared about.
Were you ever conscious about the possibility of like overdosing?
Did you ever overdose?
No, I never overdosed. I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but as far as I'm aware with the pills and stuff, I've been told that it's not likely to overdose on specifically Vicodin. I know there is pills that you can overdose on, but Vicodin, you will throw it up before you overdose, is what I've been told. I don't know how. I'm not an expert by any means.
This is a tough one, guys. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Where did you, when you were at that point, did you still feel the loss, or was just your obsession about your addiction?
It was just addiction. That's all I thought about.
So when you started coming out of your addiction and going through your treatment programs, did the loss come back?
Oh, 100%.
Did it make you want to go back there? To where you're masking it with the addiction?
Yes, it did for sure. Because there was. So, whenever I first got clean, I did the medication assisted treatment. So, that was with the Suboxone, which I didn't withdraw. It wasn't. Because withdrawals they're physical, but they're very difficult mentally as well. So, whenever I got on the Suboxone, things seemed to be doing pretty good. I was dealing with it pretty well. You know, it was manageable. It wasn't completely overwhelming. It was different. I was feeling again, but it seemed manageable at the time. But after, I had the issues that I had some insurance issues that prevented me from taking that Suboxone. I was cut cold turkey from that. And that's kind of when everything hit, 100 times harder. It was just too much. I was sick, and then I was, thinking about the loss and everything that I had done, while I was messed up. Just constantly. It was a really bad time period, and I ended up relapsing. I'd been to a couple different treatment programs. I'm still in treatment to this day.
Hey, how old are you, Andrew?
24.
When did your addiction start?
16. So 8 years. I mean, I've been clean for the last 2? So I guess 6 years.
I thought you were cleaner longer than that.
No, it hasn't been longer than that. I mean, some of the relapses have been shorter than others, for sure. But between finding the right doctors and stuff like that to stay on the medication assisted treatment and try to wean off the right way rather than just being cut, it hasn't always been the easiest. I guess my time frames aren't the best, though, to be honest, so it might be a little bit more than 2 years. I don't know for sure.
What about you, Aaron?
I've never been to rehab. What was that? What about you? The whole conversation has been about his addiction. I don't know.
I mean, the conversation isn't necessarily about the addiction. It's
right.
It's the pathway to, what started, and then where it ended up, and then as he started feeling a lot of the emotions again, and part of the relapse was some of the emotion, probably a lot of I didn't have the availability of the tools that I needed to get past the addiction, and I think in your case, Andrew, your addiction it wasn't even about loss. It just it was all about the addiction, right?
Well, that's how I ended up, for sure.
But in your case, Aaron, you were talking through some of the things that you did. So, what was your timeline? I mean, you went through the physical piece with using other people and trying to fill that gap, and then you got into smoking the weed and all that stuff. But so where was your lowest time? When did you hit that rock bottom?
I don't really know. I don't know that I necessarily had like a rock bottom. I felt like I don't know, probably when I was living with Mom, just being dumb. But I mean, I don't know if I did anything like super destructive. Apart from like neglecting going to school and stuff like that. Like, I never tried to get into college or anything. I just was like, no. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know that I necessarily had a rock bottom. I don't think I was doing anything super destructive. Like, I think I was kind of dumb for a while.
So you say dumb. What were you doing?
Well, I mean, having a kid at 19 isn't a great idea.
How old were you, Andrew?
How old was I? 17.
Yeah.
You guys were young fathers.
Yeah. So, I mean, that straightened me up a little bit, knowing that I had a daughter on the way, and that I was going to have to start taking care of her. But, I mean, I don't really know what to.
So, I mean, I think, you know, so when we talk through this kind of stuff, right, it's not a comparison of what you or Andrew or me or whoever, right? And so the idea is to talk about the challenges that we've all went through, and Andrew's had his, I've had mine, and I'm trying to dig a little bit into yours, right? So you talked about, your challenge just started out physically, using that part of the physicality within of the person to fill that gap, and then it grew from there. But when you talk about that, though, okay, so let's talk about with you, Aaron, into that a little bit deeper there. So not necessarily the part of using people, but what was your state of mind, and what were you trying to get to when you were doing that? What were you trying to? How are you trying to feel different?
I think a big part of that was like I didn't really have an end game. I didn't have like this is where I need to get to. It was more like I'm just going to keep trying whatever until I find something that works. And I don't know that I ever did. Because, I mean, I'm still dealing with stuff now with, like, Nick and all that and the trauma of that night. But,
So, to that point, and so what are you still dealing with to this day? And not, I mean, I think we all know we're always going to deal with the loss of him, right? But if you had to say if you had to talk about something that was still really hard, hurtful, and not hurtful in a way like, you know, you're intending to try to hurt somebody, but like painful, maybe is a better way to put it. What is the one thing that you have now that's still really painful for you?
I can close my eyes and I can see Nick beating on his chest and losing consciousness. It is so vivid in my brain. I think, for me, I think I've dealt with the loss side of it. I think I've come to terms with the fact that he's gone. I've come to terms with all that. What I have not been able to get rid of is the trauma of that night. I have not found anything. I've talked about it, but I've never spoken with a professional. That might be something to do, but I've yet to find something that can make me. I'd love to just be able to forget it, or at least replace it with something else.
How often do you think about that?
Anytime I think of Nick,
Yeah,
it's usually the first thing I see.
same.
Which
It's
isn't.
the most vivid memory that I have.
It is far from the first thing I want to think about when I think about him. But that's my thing. That's what I have to I don't want to say deal with, but that's what I have to deal with.
It's what we see, right?
Yeah.
So you see that when you close your eyes at night, right? Or maybe not that's the right way to say it. I mean, that's what you see.
I'm saying I can close my eyes and see it in my brain. Like
Like you're still right there.
exactly. I was standing in the doorway when it happened. I know where I was. You were sitting next to him on the table.
Yep.
We had that coffee table in the middle.
Yep.
And he was sitting next to you on the coffee table. And his eyes rolled back and his head dropped. And then you laid him on the floor.
What about you, Andrew?
Oh, I have the same memory. I deal with the same thing. I still think about it almost every day. And I can see it like I'm right there. That's never gone away. And sometimes I feel like it's hard for me whenever I think about Nick, sometimes to get past that memory. It's hard to ignore that and think of the positive things. It's just so overwhelming.
Is that how you view it, Aaron?
Yeah.
Same way?
It's hard to forget.
I think we're never going to forget it. It's not something we were able to forget, right? And this is painful. We're talking about the worst time in our life. At least I'd like to think whenever I go and whenever you guys go, there's nothing that will ever be this bad again. Right? But I also think to myself, even when we remember the worst time of our lives, should we actually forget that? And not even forget it. Should we stop? I will tell you, I have not slept a good night since that's happened. I don't sleep well, and I have not slept well.
And I can't imagine how hard that thought is for you too.
You know, I worry about you boys. And I've said on many occasions, the challenges you guys have had in your life since then, I think are and have been a direct result of that night, that 30 minutes. You know, when I said to you guys earlier in the last podcast, have we ever thought about the impact of that 30 minutes? And that 30 minutes, that impact has lasted for years and has really changed the dynamics of all of our lives. And when you guys see that, right, and you guys think about that, there was a time, let me share it with you guys. I was laying in bed one night. It was after me and your mom separated, Aaron, and I was laying in bed. I was by myself, and I was miserable. Miserable. I was a miserable son of a gun. And I don't know what I was doing. I was by myself. I was in my king size bed in that big ass bedroom. Oh, I'm gonna have to edit that word out. Write that down. Anyway.
I don't have a pen still.
Andrew texted me. And I have a computer to look at it. But I was in there. I was by myself.
1:05.
And I was...
I'm not making it to Taco Bell.
Oh, crap. What time is it?
It's 1:45.
Oh, we need to end this. So
You're fine. Let's finish this first, and then we can end it.
Yep, we're about done. I fell asleep, and I must have been in a REM or something. But I remember this dream vividly. And Nick was running in a circle, and I was looking out over this nothing. It's like this nothingness, right? It was nothing. And in that nothing, Nick was running, and he was laughing. And his laugh, right? His laugh. And I remember I was asleep and I was watching this go on. And then he just was running this circle and then stopped and ran right to me, put both of his hands on my face and got right here in my face. I mean, he was in my face, in my bubble. And he said, "Dad, it's going to be okay." And then he let go and he started running again. What that meant, I don't know.
I think it meant it's going to be okay.
But that's what
Or it was him telling you he was okay.
I think it was both. I think he was letting us know in our pain, guys, and we carry a lot. God, we carry a lot. And you boys carry, God, you guys carry a lot more than you should have ever in your lifetimes ever had to carry. And you're still doing it. But he's letting us know, not only is he okay, but we will find a way. We're going to find that way, guys, to be okay. Not perfect, not great, but we are going to be okay.
Andrew, did you ever have any dreams about him?
Oh, I did at the beginning. None that I can necessarily remember. Did I ever tell you guys about whenever I found that necklace that he made?
No.
No, I definitely told you guys about that.
You might have. Share now. The listeners have not.
It was after I had, I was talking to my girlfriend at the time and her mom, and they were really trying to get me to believe in God and everything like that, and just having a lot of religious conversations. And so they suggested that I prayed for a sign that God was real. And I was pretty hesitant at first, but eventually I tried it. So I don't remember exactly what I prayed for, but it was just, not super thought out. It was just, if you're real, give me a sign. Because I was pretty skeptical. That very next day, I had a picture on my dresser. It was at my mom's house in my bedroom. And I had a picture frame, and it had, I want to say it was a picture of my grandmother. It might have been Nick and my grandma. But there was a picture, and that very next day there was a necklace hanging over it that I had never seen before. And I asked literally everybody in the house about it. Nobody knew where it came from. Nobody even knew what it was until I showed you. And you said that Nick had made that in Boy Scouts. It had like beads on one side of it. And then I don't know what the thing is called. It kind of looks like a walnut. But it's smoother.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Clearly, I didn't take my ginkgo biloba, so my memory is terrible. Hawkeye, yes.
A Buckeye?
Or Buckeye, when I say Hawkeye.
Yeah, like the Avenger.
Oh, crap. Buckeye.
But that was like the strongest moment that I felt like I had with him. And I have no other explanation for where that came from. I asked everybody that had been in that house. Nobody put it there. Nobody had found it. It just appeared. It was the most bizarre thing. I still can't explain it.
I also had a dream about him shortly after it happened. It wasn't as. I was walking in the backyard. You know how we had that road at the end of our backyard that connected to the back half of our backyard?
Coincidentally, the name of that road was Brief Street.
It was a short road.
Very short, very brief.
But he was walking from that road and started walking towards me and met me in the middle, and we just hugged. And that was like he pulled away and I woke up. And this was probably a week or 2 weeks after it happened.
I think he was letting us know in his way that he was okay. And we're going to be okay.